Yo, what is up guys, Grim here, and in today's video we're going to be covering one of the bigger decisions that a lot of people are up against, and that is which light cone to choose from the Battle Pass rewards, assuming that you locked in the paid variant. Now, if you did lock in the paid variant and you've got this decision, what we're going to be doing in this video is breaking down each option and understanding what kind of value it can bring to your account and trying to allow you guys to have a bit more of a easy time making a decision about which one is right for you. Now, it goes without saying that no one can predict the future, and there is a lot of light cones on offer here, and the only way to evaluate them is by measuring them up against everything else that is currently in the game, and for certain characters that are available. So the actual priority list of what you're going to want to grab is going to depend vastly on what light cones you actually have on your account currently, what light cones you plan to have on your account in the future, as well as what characters you have access to. So there is a lot of elements here, but we are going to break down each light cone. I'm going to give you guys some pros, cons, and overall performance that you might be able to expect based on calculations, and hopefully you guys are going to be able to make a little bit more of a safe and more informed decision. Across the board, we're going to be looking at all of these light cones at Superimposition 1, and the reason for that is that you can only get one singular copy of each of these per battle pass. So if you wanted to get a copy all the way to max superimposition level, you'd be waiting 5 battle passes. Now that's totally a viable strategy if you wanted to go down that route, and it may be something that you want to consider, but for now, as we're on the first battle pass, we're going to look at them at Superimposition 1 and assess their value. It's also worth noting that there are some Battle Pass light cones who have much more favorable stat distributions than other free-to-play or even 4-star gacha option. Return to Darkness, for example, has a base attack stat which is 529, which is way more important and very strong compared to the 470 odd stats that the gacha 4-star as well as free-to-play option has on its light cone stat there. So that is going to be a big determining factor for some characters, and I'll mention it wherever it is relevant. First up on the list here are the abundant light cones. Now, in order to understand what is going on here with the light cones, we need to understand who uses them. There are 2 abundance characters in the game, and both of them are HP scaling healers who rely on their ultimates. And they're going to be predominantly using basic attacks and ultimates to manage most of the party's HP. Now, these characters are Natasha for free-to-play players and Bailu if you manage to get her. Now, when we're looking at all the light cones, we need to understand how they're going to apply to those characters. So there's 2 categories of abundance light cones currently in the game. There is a supporting variant of light cone which aims to support the team with either more skill points or energy, and there's also a direct healing output light cone set which increase the overall healing of the character. Now, which one you're going to want to go for is going to depend on the content you're doing. If you feel like your abundance character is not healing enough and they're not topping everyone up whenever they use their heals, you're going to want a healing focused light cone. If you feel like they are doing that and you want to kind of bring back on the healing a little bit, you don't need as much healing, you're going to want to go for a supporting and utility light cone. Let's take a look and understand what those 2 categories are first and foremost, and then take a look and assess the Battle Pass light cone and see how it measures up. So for supporting light cones, the most accessible one and easiest to get is going to be multiplication. This light cone is easily going to be accessible to all free-to-play players at Superimposition 5, and every basic attack that the healer uses is going to advance their action forward by 20%. Now, the reason this is good is that you're going to be generating more skill points, so it's a very good supporting light cone for healers, and it'll also allow you to get more frequent heals. It's got pretty low base stats though. The next one is Quid Quo Pro. This is going to be available to everyone at Superimposition 5 as well eventually. At the start of the wearer's turn, they're going to grant 16 energy to a random ally whose energy is currently lower than 50%. This light cone is crazy good because it actually grants characters who have a little bit of wonky rotations like Danhang, Serval, and in the future Jin Yuan, energy they need to fix their rotation and ensure that they're going to get the highest damage possible. In addition to that, it's also effectively a little mini Ting Young ultimate every single time your healer moves, which is basically effectively going to give them a bunch of energy over the course of a fight to all of your party members. This is a great supporting light cone. Now, the final one to discuss here is going to be Shared Feeling, which is a little bit of a hybrid approach here on the supporting front. It does give outgoing healing, but it also kind of gives a little bit of a Quid Quo Pro effect, but it gives it to all of your allies. So this is a gacha one, so we're going to leave it at Superimposition 1 when assessing it, but whenever you use this skill, which is unfortunately going to be pretty rarely with a healer, you're going to grant 2 energy to the entire team, which again is going to be a pretty good amount. You know, overall it's not too bad, just not as much energy as Quid Quo Pro. but you do get a bit of healing there. So it's kind of like going to give you healing while also giving you some utility. Now when it comes to the other category, which is direct healing output, it's actually pretty cut and dry. Time Waits for No One by the signature is the best. It gives increased HP, which will scale your heals, as well as outgoing healing, which will scale them even more. And it also has another bonus effect, which gives you some pretty, it gives you some little bit of damage. And then comes up post-op conversation, which gives you energy regeneration rate, as well as increasing the healing of your ultimate, which Natasha and Bailu, most of the healing comes from the ultimate. And then finally, we have perfect timing, which is going to increase your healing based on your effect resistance, which is okay, but overall, it's not going to be anywhere close to the healing output of Bailu's signature or Natasha's signature, which we just discussed. And of course, we've got our hybrid approach here from Shared Feeling. So overall, we've got some great supporting options in Multiplication, Quid Pro, and Shared Feeling. And then we've got some great healing optimization ones, which give more healing in Time Waits for No One, post-op optimization, and perfect timing. So where does Warmth Shorten's Cold Nights fit in then? Well, let's break it down. It's absolutely going to fit in with the healing optimization light cones, which are post-op, Bailu's, as well as perfect timing, as it's going to boost your overall healing output. Now, if we take a look here exactly what it's doing, it's going to increase the user's HP by 16%, which, it's not a bad amount. It's pretty decent. You're going to overall get some more healing out of it, but that doesn't scale insanely well like healing output does, which the Natasha signature does. In addition to that, though, it also has another effect, and that effect is that whenever you use a basic attack on your healer, which you'll be doing very frequently on Bailu and Natasha, you restore 2% of every ally's HP. Now that's actually a pretty strong effect. You're essentially healing your entire team 8% of their maximum life every basic attack. But let me talk a little bit more about that. How strong is it in reality? Well, it's actually not maybe as strong as you might think. And overall, the reason for that is that damage in Star Rail comes in waves. And the way that a battle actually plays out is a little bit as follows. You're going to be taking a very, very minimal amount of damage. Generally, you're going to be taking basic or single attacks on your taunting or tanking units like Trailblazer Fire, Japad, or March. But then the enemy is going to do a big AoE attack. And that's when you want this light cone to come into effect and start healing everybody up. Let's say that your entire team took 50% of their life, and you did a basic attack. You'd restore 2% of that, which would still leave you 48% left to restore. It would take you 25 times to fully heal everyone up using the bonus effect from this light cone, which means that it's not really going to be very good at bringing everyone back to full life after an AoE attack. Now, in the event that there's not an AoE attack and you're just taking single target hits, you're not going to get the full value from this either. So it's in a bit of an awkward position where it really can't fix the big AoE damage income that's coming in, and it also doesn't really help you in kind of fights where you're taking one singular hit. The way that battles generally work out is you take that big hit on everyone, and then you pop the ultimate and then heal everyone back up, and then you wait for that big hit to come again, and hopefully you have your ultimate charge back up again. So while Warmth Shorten's Cold Nights does seem pretty cool, and it might have a place which I haven't identified yet, it doesn't seem to really have a place right now in the endgame which you will be trying to fight against. I think that it's much better to increase the healing of your ultimate on Natasha as well as Bailu and increase that overall outgoing healing and try and get to that ultimate faster and more consistently than it is to go ahead and try and kind of get a little bit of a tiny heal every single basic attack, as that's really not even going to take the edge off of the damage you're taking in big AoE fights, and that's probably going to be my assessment here. Now, if we take a look at Superposition 5 though, things don't really change. You're still going to need like 12 to 13 attacks to heal up a big 50% AoE nuke on your team. And when you get into Forgotten Hall, those big AoE nukes, they're going to be coming in fast and they're going to be coming in frequently. So overall, for me at least, Warmth Shortened Cold Nights would not be my choice from the Battle Pass. It is worth noting though that this light cone might have some very interesting applications as a passive healing and automatic trigger for the Simulated Universe Abundance path. There are a ton of blessings which increase the abilities of your characters every time they are healed, so it could be pretty interesting just for Simulated Universe runs. Next up is the Hunt light cone. So when it comes to Hunt, pretty much the only thing you care about is whichever one gives you the most damage. Now, I'm going to flash up a damage chart here for Dan Heng, and you guys can take a look at exactly what's going on here. The only thing which you guys need to know is that Cruising the Stellar Sea actually doesn't have its attack boost, which is on kill included. Everything else should be reasonably accurate there though. But you can see there the damage breakdown, and Return to Darkness certainly isn't a high candidate in terms of damage it provides. So overall, it's not going to be a very good choice at Superposition 1 for damage. However, it does also bring another effect here, and it says that after a crit hit, there is a 16% fixed chance to dispel one buff on the target enemy. Now, this is basically going to be deciding whether or not you want to use this. It's essentially going to give your hunt character the ability to dispel enemies. Now, it isn't 100% clear exactly how this works, but in general, the characters that can perform attacks in this game actually have their attacks broken up into multiple hits. Dan Heng, for example, when he uses his skill, he doesn't hit once, he hits like 4 times, and each of those 4 times can do critical hits. Now, for a light cone like Swordplay, it actually counts all 4 of those hits for its stacks. So I would probably hazard a guess that when we're taking a look at Return to Darkness, after it says after a crit hit, there is a X% chance, I would say that it's after any critical strike on an enemy. So if you hit 4 times and all 4 of those were crits, it would roll 16, 16, 16, 16, 16, and you'd have a much higher chance to strip off buffs from the enemy than I think you might expect. Now, Sailor as well, her skill also hits 4 times, and Su Shang, I believe, hits even more. So overall, it's going to really come down to how many times the character which you're using this on hits with their abilities. And it's also worth noting though, that of course it's a pretty lower end damage option, but how powerful is it to dispel buffs on targets? Well, I think that it might be a lot more powerful than people give it credit for. I think that there's a lot more buffs which you think might not be buffs, but are buffs. So right now, I don't have a full grasp on everything in the game in terms of enemies and all of their capabilities. All I want to say though is that I don't think this light cone is bad, despite being pretty low on the damage charts. I definitely think it's one which I might consider, maybe not on the first time around, but I definitely think it has value. And as you watch my Memory of Chaos videos, which will be coming out shortly, I'm going to flag specific buffs on enemies. And if you've been waiting and you're like, I can use that light cone that was on the battle pass for that, maybe it is going to be a good option for you. But right now, it's looking like more of a utility light cone, and it's going to be at the cost of some of the damage on your hunt character. Next up is the Preservation Light Cone. This is me. So most Preservation characters in the game are prioritizing shielding, taunting, or overall just damage mitigation and control. Japad has an ultimate which is a big shield. March has an ultimate which is a freeze and doesn't really aim to deal damage. And Trailblazer Fire's ultimate is to apply shields as well as deal fire break effect. Now what this light cone does is actually add a damaging component to Preservation characters' ultimates. Now there's a few other damaging component Preservation light cones, namely the one here, Trend in the Universal Market, but they're not really considered very competitive. And the reason for that is that Preservation characters, right now at least, aren't interested in dealing damage. They'll leave that to the damage dealers and they'll focus on mitigating damage. Now, this light cone is absolutely going to be focused on damage. There's no doubt about it. It does provide some defense, but the main portion of it here is it's going to add a new effect to each of the Preservation characters' ultimates if they deal damage. So Japad, sorry, you're out. This won't work when you're using Japad's ultimate. But Trailblazer Fire and March are in. So right now, when you use their ultimate, they'll hit for an amount of damage. But this light cone will add a new portion of damage, which is going to be based off of their defense. So if you have 1000 defense and you hit with your ultimate with this light cone, it's going to add an extra 600 flat damage to the hit. Now that 600 flat damage is going to be multiplied by all of your increases to elemental damage and generic damage. It can crit, and it can also be multiplied by critical strike multiplier. Now that's a pretty strong effect, but right now, I don't really think there's any character who is interested in going down that path. I don't think March or Trailblazer Fire are really interested in scaling defense to deal damage right now. Now that doesn't mean there's not going to be a character in the future that wants to do that, but right now, if I was picking on the first round of Battle Pass, I'm not sure that I would pick This Is Me, as I don't think I really need my March or Trailblazer Fire to deal more damage. I'll either have them break or I'll have them mitigate. That's what I'm looking at least for. Maybe you guys want to invest in this light cone for the future, or you're interested in trying to re-gear your Trailblazer Fire or March in the direction of damage. But right now, I don't think it's a must-have, and I think it's going to be up to you guys to decide whether or not this is an interesting effect for you. Alright, next up is the Harmony Light Cone. Carve the moon and weave the clouds. So let's quickly cover what it does and then understand how it fits in on the 3 Harmony characters and the overall light cone meta for Harmony characters. So first and foremost, it is a light cone which applies a random effect to your team. And it's going to cycle between those random effects every single time the user uses an attack. So you'll enter the battle, you'll get a random effect, and then every time you use an effect or attack or action, you get a new random effect. Now those random effects that you can choose from are as follows. You can either get 10% increased attack for the entire team, 12% increased crit damage for the entire team, or 6% increased energy regeneration for the entire team. Now let's break those down and understand how good they are. So 6% increased energy regeneration isn't bad. Energy regeneration is a very scarce stat, but it's also a stat which is very finicky. The only value which you'll get from energy regeneration rate is if it would give you an ultimate earlier than you otherwise would have gotten it. Now 6% is high enough where that may actually be the case, but you're not going to be able to build rotations and characters around that 6% because it's not consistent. You're not going to be getting that every single time, and if you were to build around it, you'd be pretty sad if you didn't get the energy regeneration even once in the fight. So while it's welcome, it's nice, it's not going to be a big difference in terms of your overall fighting, except when you randomly get an earlier ultimate, in my opinion. The other two, 10% increased attack and 12% crit damage. So 10% increased attack isn't bad, damage is always welcome, and you'll take anything that you can get, and overall that's not bad. 10% attack, no problems. 12% crit damage is also welcome, not too bad there. I don't think you're going to be turning any heads or thinking this light cone is overpowered anytime soon, but it's got some damage, it's got some utility, it's always going to be welcome. So how does it fit into the bigger picture then, and who could use it, and how does it stack up against the competition? Well, there are two types of Harmony Light Cone users. There are Harmony Light Cone users like Asta and Bronya who are looking for energy recharge rate consistently from their Light Cone, and then there is characters like Tin Young who don't really have energy recharge issues and who are looking to benefit the team with their Light Cone. Now, what do I mean by energy recharge? Well, there are characters in this game who can shorten the amount of basic attacks or skills they need per ultimate dramatically by getting energy recharge rate. A good example of this is Bronya. Without any energy recharge rate, she needs to use 6 basics per ultimate, and that's going to be a lot. But if you get energy recharge rate and an energy recharge light cone, you can actually shorten that from 6 all the way down to 4, essentially having 50% more ultimate uptime, which is massive for your team and overall damage output. And because of that, pretty much Bronya is going to be shackled to using an energy recharge rate light cone for the foreseeable future until we get more access to energy recharge on gear. So Bronya is not someone who's going to use Carve the Moon. Asta is also in a similar boat. If you want to get her most optimal rotation, it's looking like, not confirmed yet, but it's looking like she'll also want energy recharge on her light cone. We'll have to confirm that when we do the build guide for her though. Bronya for sure wants the energy recharge, and Asta likely will want it. Now the energy recharge ones are Meshing of Cogs, Memories of the Past, but the battle isn't over, but they're not going to really compete with Carve the Moon because the characters want them, can't use Carve the Moon anyway. So what's competing with Carve the Moon? Well, it's going to be on Tin Young, as she is the last remaining Harmony character who doesn't specifically, at least based on our current understanding, need energy recharge right now. So what are the light cones which Tin Young are considered using? So she is going to be considering using Past and Future as one of the free-to-play options here. In my opinion, this light cone is a little bit underwhelming, but it is an option for buffing the team. But more importantly, she's going to be looking at using Dance Dance Dance. So Dance Dance Dance, in my opinion, is probably the best Harmony Light Cone for characters who are looking to provide a benefit to the team and don't need energy recharge. What it does is it increases the speed of your overall team every single time you use an ultimate, effectively. It's going to advance their action forward by 16% at Superimposition 1. And that is an exceptionally powerful effect. You're going to accelerate your entire team's rotation quite substantially, and you're basically going to be taking a step up every single time your support uses their ultimate. Now, this is going to scale better and better and better as you get more and more gear and more speed on your support. And it's definitely going to be a massive deal for your entire team. Now, as you get superimpositions and all sorts of stuff like that, it can only get better. Now, the downside of Dance 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 is it is a gacha light cone. And until it's right up on a light cone banner, it's likely not going to be in everyone's arsenal for quite some time. Now, if you don't have Dance Dance Dance, which is, in my opinion, the best light cone for this role, you could and maybe consider get Carve the Moon. But just know that when you do eventually get Dance Dance Dance, I personally would consider it numerically vastly superior to Carve the Moon. I'd much rather have way more speed on my entire team than a little bit of damage as well as crit damage and maybe some situational more ultimates. Now, there is a scenario though in which you have a lot of characters who are Harmony on your teams. If you have more than 2 and maybe like 3 Harmony characters, there may be a world in which you want Dance Dance Dance, Carve the Moon, as well as an energy recharge light cone on your roster. But I don't think that situation is currently going to be present in 1.0, so you guys are going to have to make your decision based on that. Alright, moving on, we have Nihility up next, and the signature light cone for the Battle Pass is going to be We Will Meet Again. This is a light cone which is incredibly interesting. Now, I don't think anyone truly fully understands exactly how this light cone works. It's one of those which could be mechanically broken, and I fully expect to see some sort of a character in the future completely abusing this. Just know that right now, I think this is the light cone which probably has the biggest potential to be a wild card, but I think if you take it on face value, it's not the strongest. Let's break it down and talk a little bit about it and how it stacks up against other things on the table, and then of course how it works on characters. So this light cone here says that after the wearer uses a basic attack or skill, deal additional damage equal to 48% of the wearer's attack to a random enemy that has been attacked. So, oh man, this is a tough one. It's essentially going to be like a proc of King Young's Blessing, but it only works on basic attacks and skills, and it applies a new instance of damage. So there's a world in which this can trigger multiple on-hit effects or something along these lines. I feel like there's going to be something broken here. I don't know what it is, but I've got alarm bells ringing whenever I read this light cone. Now, if you take it at face value though, what it's actually providing you isn't that strong. Most Nihility characters are first and foremost not aiming to deal damage. So characters like Pella as well as Welt are primarily being played right now, at least in the end game, as supports to provide a lot of their benefits to the team without trying to focus on damage themselves. And this is predominantly a damage focused light cone. The other Nihility character, Sampo, isn't really interested in boosting his basic attacks. He completely scales off of dots and wind shear, so he's not really going to be too interested in using this light cone either. Now, that doesn't rule out the future of Nihility characters though. There are going to be a lot of Nihility characters over the course of this game, and oh man, the way this is worded, it just sounds so fishy to me. I feel like there's going to be something here. I don't know what it is, I don't know how it's going to work. There's something weird about this light cone, and I've seen footage of it, and it just looks like there's going to be something which just is going to be pretty broken with it. But right now, when you actually measure it up against everything else, it just absolutely doesn't even come close to competing, even on the damage front. So right now, in terms of supporting characters like Welt as well as Pella, there's just no looking past the insane utility that Resolution Shines of Pearls of Sweat provides. This is going to give you a defense shred on all of your attacks, and you can increase the chance of that to happen with effect hit rate, which all Nihility characters are going to be rocking. And if you can end up getting higher superimposition levels, it only gets stronger and stronger. So this is a utility and support focused light cone, and on Pella as well as Welt, I'm pretty sure this is just going to be best in slot. And if you had those two characters on two different teams, you'd just run this light cone on both of those teams. It is that strong because you really want that defense shred. Now in terms of Sampo, he has a lot of good options already for damage, and all of them completely smash We Will Meet Again currently. In the Name of the World is pretty damn good, especially for Sampo, but there's also really good free-to-play options. You know, Eye of the Parade gives effect hit rate, dot damage. Then we've also got Formata, which increases damage against wind shear and shocked enemies. Just break effect as well, which is great. And then even Good Night Sleep Well gives an absolutely massive amount of damage against debuffed enemies. So right now, there just doesn't seem to be a place for We Will Meet Again, but it does look mechanically very interesting. Definitely not one I'd pick up on the first pass around until I see some people do some pretty crazy stuff with it. I'd probably leave it on the back burner, but I'd be keeping my eye on what people are doing with this and seeing if there is some crazy interactions in the future. Next up is the Destruction Light Cone, Nowhere to Run. So similar to the Hunt Light Cone, we can easily see how good this light cone is just by comparing it in terms of raw damage output to the other light cones which are competitive. Now I'm going to use Clara, one of the premium destruction units in 1.0 for this comparison. So I'm going to flash it up on screen here. You guys will be able to see that Clara's best in slot light cone right now is something irreplaceable. It's going to give her the most damage. It doesn't really have any conditional things here either, just thanks to how the way it works and her counterattacks work. So overall, this is going to be her best in slot. And you can see that it absolutely dwarfs Nowhere to Run. Now, Nowhere to Run isn't bad. It gives 24% increased attack and has high base attack values as well. But you can see here on Clara, there is actually another free-to-play accessible and easy to access option, and that is Fall of an Aeon here. Now, Fall of an Aeon here on the chart is at Superimposition 5. Now, the reason this is at Superimposition 5 is because this is fully accessible free-to-play. Everyone's going to get it to Superimposition 5 over the weeks and months that are coming, and you'll be having that. And do you really want to grab a Battle Pass light cone which is in competition with a insane free-to-play light cone? It's a little bit difficult and a thing that you guys are going to have to consider. But also worth noting on this damage chart here, this is only including the 16% attack 4 stacks on Fall of an Aeon. It's not even including the break effect here, which can trigger and give you a 24% increased damage for 2 turns. So Fall of an Aeon isn't just better, it absolutely obliterates Nowhere to Run overall. Even if you take Nowhere to Run to Super in position 5, it would still get obliterated by Fall of Aeon. So right now, Nowhere to Run doesn't seem to really have too much of a place numerically. So what else has it got going for it? Well, let's take a look. So it says here that whenever the wearer defeats an enemy, they restore HP equal to 12% of their attack. Now, how valuable is this? Well, it's a little bit difficult to say, but right now, I don't think it's all that valuable in the game. I think that most of your sustain issues are going to either be solved at the very inception of your team, or you're probably going to have some issues anyway. So I don't think you can really rely on this light cone. So it doesn't really bring enough damage to be super duper competitive with already free-to-play options in the game. And I don't think that its sustaining element here has a place, at least right now, in the way that teams are constructed for the Forgotten Hall. Now, that could change in the future and it could get a lot better, but even when comparing this to other light cones which are reasonably accessible to all players like Secret Vow as well as Under the Blue Sky, there is actually some pretty good merit in going for those over this one as well. Secret Vow here on the list is calculated not even including this additional 20% damage, so if you're playing a brawler who's going to get hit a little bit, you can expect Secret Vow to actually overtake Nowhere to Run at Super in position 1 in damage. And Under the Blue Sky here isn't actually including the on-kill critical strike effect that you get for 3 turns when you defeat an enemy either. So overall, the conditionals have been weeded out, so really Nowhere to Run isn't too competitive. And if you're playing Hook and you're looking for a good light cone for Hook and you're considering Nowhere to Run there, you should just take a look at the free-to-play option Wolf Walk Time. This one is absolutely crazy and smashes a lot of light cones in terms of what they can bring for damage on Hook. Hook will be applying a burn every single turn, so this light cone is actually insanely competitive, so much so that it even comes close to Fall of an Aeon at Super Position 5. Fall of an Aeon still wins out thanks to its ability to give damage on break, but damn, this one gives it a run for its money. So overall, I don't think that Nowhere to Run is a too good numerical choice, at least right now, but you know, maybe you guys want to look into investing in that sustaining element if that's your cup of tea. Last but certainly not least is today is another peaceful day. So this is another damage dealing light cone which has a pretty high base attack in a similar vein to the hunt and destruction light cones we've already covered. So it's got higher base attack than other 4-star light cones. In addition to that, it's actually got a very good generic effect. So it's going to give you 0.2% increased damage per point of energy. So if you have 100 energy, you're going to get 20% increased generic damage. Now that's actually a very strong effect. It might not seem strong compared to some of the other light cones we've already been looking at, but the reason it's strong is that the Erudition Light cones are actually quite underwhelming. We only have a few other light cones which are really competitive or even usable on a lot of characters. So if we take a character like Serval, who doesn't have any follow-up attacks and is primarily just looking to deal damage over time or, you know, hits, the only other option she really has is the Seriousness of Breakfast, which is actually a competitive option. Now this one you can get to Super in position 5, and it is free to play, and it will give you 24% increased damage. So we've got the Battle Pass light cone giving 20 on Serval, but this one's giving 24. Now overall, I'm going to flash the numbers up here in a second, not yet. But the actual Battle Pass light cone still wins because it gives more base attack. Now it's going to be very close, but just base pound for pound on their normal base effect, the Battle Pass light cone will win just on that. But the Series of Breakfast actually has another effect here, and that is that whenever you defeat an enemy, you gain an 8% increased attack boost, and it stacks up to 3 times. Now that's actually a big boost. Overall, that is going to make it pull quite ahead if you are killing any sort of enemies in a fight. And if you're an Erudition character, you're an AoE character, so chances are that is probably happening. So if you were comparing a Super in position 5 Breakfast to a Super in position 1 Peaceful Day, I actually think I would take the Breakfast most of the time on a 100 energy character. Now it doesn't end there though, because we actually can see that this light cone actually offers additional damage past 100 energy. If you're taking a character like Jing Yuan, who has a energy cost of 130 on his ultimate, now he's instead getting a 26% increased damage boost instead of 20, which now causes it to give more elemental damage on top of the base attack than Seriousness of Breakfast. Now, in order to actually fully understand exactly what's going on here, I will now give you guys the damage charts. So I'm going to put up here all of the damage light cones here for Jing Yuan, which are probably going to be roughly what it's going to be looking like in terms of the damage for him. Now you can see here his signature absolutely blows everything out of the water. It's not even close. But then we got Peaceful Day S1 as the next best option for Jin Yuan. And then following that up with Birth of the Self. So Birth of the Self here is Jin Yuan's big booster here for his Lightning Lord. It gives you increased damage to follow-up attacks, as well as more increased damage to follow-up attacks when they go below 50% life. So that's why it's the next best option. And then Series of Breakfast is like very close as well. And that's not including its conditional attack boost here, which it's going to be getting. So it probably pulls ahead of Peaceful Day as well as Birth of the Self if you get those boosted attack buffs there. Now, finally, we do also have Night on the Milky Way all the way down there. The reason for that is that this is a calculation based on a single target, and this Light Cone can get 5 times as strong on its base effect from having 5 enemies. So the more enemies you have, the better this Light Cone will become, but on single target, it's not the best, as you can see. This also isn't including its effect with its breaking here, which will give you 30% increased damage for 1 turn, which would also bump it up. So I imagine that the order of operation and acquisition is going to go a little bit like this. Before the Dawn is absolutely the best on Jin Yuan, Night of the Milky Way is probably second, Seriousness of Breakfast is probably third, and then Peaceful Day is probably fourth. So it's definitely not a massively competitive option. But as you can see here, I wanted to add a new element. I wanted to see what this Light Cone, the Battle Pass one, would look like at Superimposition 5. Because I think it's got a little bit more potential than a lot of other Light Cones on the Battle Pass. So I decided to give you guys Superimposition 5 of this Light Cone as well. And you can see here that it's actually now quite competitive. It's something that you could get over time, and it might be something that you wanted to invest in. But again, if you're planning on pulling for Jin Yuan's signature Light Cone, it's not even close. You basically would be wasting your time going for this Light Cone at all. But you know, it's there as an option, and overall you guys are going to have a bit more information on making your choice with this Erudition Light Cone. If at Superimposition 1, it's really not that much of an upgrade, or an upgrade at all, over the free-to-play option, which is the Seriousness of Breakfast, from my perspective right now. So which one should you choose overall with all that information? Well, none of them are so powerful that I feel like they're going to mess up your account by not having them, at least from my perspective right now. There's certainly some merit in some of them, but none of them are really overwhelming. So I think you should make the decision yourself based on what your account feels like it needs most. Now, I'm going to give you guys some of my own opinions, but I really encourage you to make your own decision based on what's best for you. So right now, let's go through them. So the Abundance Light Cone here, I don't feel is that powerful for my specific account. I don't really feel like I need this for the Forgotten Hall. The Destruction Light Cone, I feel like isn't going to be on the power level I'm looking for compared to free-to-play options. The Erudition Light Cone could be good if I decided to invest into Superimposition 5, but at Superimposition 1, it's already beaten out by a free-to-play Light Cone, which I can level up to Superimposition 5 very easily for free using Forgotten Hall as well as farming Echoes of War. The overall other Light Cones that are on offer here, which are the We Will Meet Again as well as This Is Me, feel very speculative. I feel like there's characters who could use these in the future very, very nicely, and I might want to pick them up for that reason, but right now there's no clean-cut character who wants to use these, and I feel like I might end up wasting my Battle Pass if I pick up either one of these, as there's no character that wants them right now. The final two here feel like safe choices which have a lot of utility and a lot of value in terms of a free-to-play player. Return to Darkness gives you something you can't get anywhere else, which is a dispel on hunt characters. Yes, it's just a massive cost of a lot of your damage, but sometimes damage doesn't matter. If you can dispel a critical enemy, well, maybe that's good enough. And even just picking it up to have the option definitely does seem pretty alluring to me as a Forgotten Hall player. But, you know, if you're not interested in dispelling, this definitely won't be a good option because it's definitely a damage downgrade. The last one here, Carve the Moon, Weave the Clouds, is a pretty good all-round generic Harmony Light Cone, especially for one of the stronger characters in the game, Ting Young. There's also not really too many good free-to-play options. Yes, it's pretty much beaten out completely by Dance Dance Dance, but if you don't have Dance Dance Dance, this is a really good option for the meantime. In addition to that, it's very possible that you're going to be using 3, 4 maybe Harmony characters in the future on your Forgotten Hall teams, 2 per side. And, you know, more Light Cones for Harmony definitely doesn't seem like a bad thing to me. So I think it's a pretty safe option as well. Overall guys, hope you guys have enjoyed the video and you've learned something new. If you did or you got any information at all out of this, make sure to chuck the video a like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Again, remember, all this is based on current knowledge. Everything is subject to change as we all learn more together. Until next time, hope you guys have enjoyed. Cheers.